Okay, this is some basic information for international students on internships in the computer department at St. Scholastica. I'm going to post in the chat the resource I'm going to be using. And it's also in this QR code and this URL here. Um, So let's just talk. International students say have some special challenges when doing an internship in the United States and working in the United States, and it can be even more challenging because the computer department requires students complete an internship as part of their undergrad studies. Let's just talk about some of the programs here. So first, international students should be working with Winter at the Office of International Programs, the OIP office. They have great resources there. And this is actually from their website, and they have the documents and forms there. So there are basically as a student, you're often here on an F1 visa as a student, and that gives you two things you can do while you're a student here and like working as an intern or something like that. You'll use the CPT, curricular practical training. So whenever you're working on at as part of like your a computer internship here, you'll do a CPT here. Now, after you graduate, you have a short amount of time with optional, an OPT, and you can apply for that also. But we'll mainly be dealing with CPT here. Um, there's also a lot of students are wanting to stay in the United States, and so you often want a temporary work visa or something like that. And so most companies will need to sponsor you in order to get that here. And that can be expensive for companies to do. It's a fair amount of work involving lawyers and stuff. Will cost thousands of dollars through the process. So. Um, but again, make sure you reach out. I'm giving you basic information here, but make sure you reach out to the OIP office there for the best advice on campus, I'd say. Um, so we have a general internship process, and I'll be recording another video just on that process. And this is for, everyone, including international students, how you register for credit for the course, some resources for finding an internship. We have to set up the course in a Handshake so we can track some things. And then you have to register for the CIS 455 course. And international students, all students have to do that. So that's in a separate internship process document because everyone does that, including international students. So this is really on things beyond that. So first things is that international students who are working off campus must register for at least one credit of CIS 455, the internship course, every semester they work. This is different than citizens and residents who are not on that type of visa because a U.S. citizen, like a student, might just register for one credit over the summer and then continue working in the fall but not do it for credit, or do one internship 1 year and then and register for credit, and then do another internship the next year, not do it for credit. But that is not an option for international students. You always have to be registered for one credit of the CIS 455 because that qualifies you for the CPT forms. And again, you must complete, you and I as the internship coordinator must both complete CPT forms for your work every semester. So this is something you have to do every semester that you're working here. Um, let's talk about the challenge of finding an internship then. There are a couple options. And why is this more challenging for international students? Well, one of the challenges is that many companies use internship as a recruiting tool for full-time employees. And many companies do not sponsor visa applications and so will not hire international students as interns. Um, the reason is, I mean, you do not need sponsorship. Um, excuse me. So you do not need sponsorship to do the internship, but you would afterwards if you're hired full time. And since companies are using the interns as recruiting, often a fair number of interns are then offered full-time positions in a company that because of that, a lot of companies will, look and say, well, we are not going to hire interns that we're not going to have the option to hire as full-time later on because we don't do sponsorship. So one of the things we want to look at is what companies will do sponsorships and sponsor visa applications. Um, and because this can be, again, expensive, companies pay thousands of dollars to do this. Um, so some options. Uh, if you work on campus, you don't have to be sponsored and you can just work on campus. You also don't necessarily have to complete the CPT form if you're working on campus. So that includes, all the student worker things. A lot of students work at the help desk. Now, the help desk doesn't satisfy the requirements for the internship, but there are jobs within IT department. Sometimes, web development internships, and especially over the summer, sometimes there's just like system setup internships that would be okay there. Excuse me. I mean, okay, as far as they have enough additional skills to satisfy the internship requirement. So look on campus. Now, on campus also often includes the monastery, I believe. And so sometimes you can work for the monastery. We've had, I think, students work for Upward Bound in the summer. And again, sometimes depending on those jobs, they may or may not qualify for the internship. But again, they do add some good experience for you. So look for on-campus jobs with the various organizations, as part of our campus. You can work outside the country. So we've had a number of international students uh, go back to their home country and complete an internship. That's certainly allowed, and we will count that as an internship for that. I've also worked with a number of students who've just, found internships like in the EU or other locations like that, and done a summer internship there. This is particularly valuable if that's an area you want to work with after you graduate. There again, often you're trying to build a relationship with the company there. Another thing to keep in mind then is that it's sometimes useful to work for companies, larger international companies that'll have many offices around here. And so since you have many offices around, you can start in one location and then work there. So a lot of these, maybe you'll work in uh their French office or their London office initially, and then at some point then maybe you'll have a chance to work back in the US or in your hometown depending or home country depending on where you want to be. Now I'm kind of setting this up more for yeah, so let's talk about if you want to stay in the United States and you want to find an internship in the United States, what are some options there? So we use Handshake as a job listings. There's job listings there, and so there are some good opportunities there. I use Handshake more for our tracking of internships. So we'll have you enter some paperwork when you get an internship and do some reporting based on that. So we track experiences and get reports and Handshake from that. But they also have their job listings there, and you can filter that by accepts, OPT, CPT, or U.S. authorization optional there. Yeah, they're in the other filters. So I also send out these emails and post internships to this spreadsheet here. So like just this year, this is early in September. Those are mainly, Minnesota internships here. Here's mid-September, more internships for this. And again, I mainly look at the United States, I mean, to Minnesota, but like these were companies that were at the job fairs in September. So a lot of these had internships outside Minnesota because again, they were just at the job fair. So they were hiring both in Minnesota and other locations. Uh, and I'm just sent out a list of companies. We'll talk about where I got these companies that I think might be likely to hire or sponsor you with a CPT internship there. So I just posted those, and we'll talk about that more in just a sec. Um, Related to that, also, I've been looking at a number of programs, and so I don't think, yeah, I think I'm sending this out tomorrow. This is the newest list. It says 1024, but I haven't sent it out yet, I don't think. Um, so again, these are more national jobs here, um, and some bigger companies. And a number of these are also available for first and second year students. Typical internship is after your third year and before you start your final year, fourth and final year, you'd get an internship. And so a lot of internships, if you look at like the traditional internships, a lot of them, if they do require things, will require 3 years of you being in your third year. They often say 3 years plus because in a lot of schools, it'll an undergrad degree takes 5 or 6 years. At Scholastica, we're pretty hard to get most students done in 4 years here. But there are some opportunities that are for freshmen here. Some of them are specifically set up for, they might be like a tech start opportunity. Microsoft has their Microsoft Explore opportunities, things like that. Here. Some of them will be actual internships. Some of them will be more like career fairs or webinars or stuff like that that are out there for this. So you can keep your options. And I'll share where I look for these in just a sec. So, and remember, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. Um, so as far as looking, networking helps a lot. There's so many companies out there. So extend your network. You know, who do you know in the United States and Minnesota, whatever? Make sure you touch base with everyone you know. Make sure you know that they know you're looking for that you're working computers and you're looking for an internship or summer job or something like that. Um, so it's not uncommon for small companies and nonprofits to hire you for the summer because uh, and they'll often just give you I mean they may not be hiring you after you graduate, but they're a good place to start as an intern to get some experience on your resume. For example, like the YMCA in town, they have unpaid internships usually. And again, that's a good place just to get your start, kind of a foot in the door with some experience here. There are a number of companies. We just talked to Minnesota County Information Systems in Grand Rapids. And again, they're a small dozen people in their office. And again, they basically said, well, if someone contacts us or walks in the door and says they want an internship, we'll consider creating an internship. And in fact, one of our students just did that. And that's how she's got her full-time job there for that. Well, again, but smaller companies are great. But again, you really want to reach out, especially relatives, friends, classmates, faculty, staff, anyone you can connect with, especially, and you want to have them with connections, often to bigger companies, international companies, things like that. Anyone works. So, and you don't know, your English teacher, you don't know where your English teacher's partner works or where their parents or their kids work or stuff like that. So, just keep sharing that information around. Do the normal networking stuff there. So, Also look nationwide here. We'll see that in a sec when we get down to some of the data stuff, but um, there are tech companies in Minnesota that sponsor, but it's much more common that the bigger companies out on the West Coast or the East Coast will sponsor yours. So yeah. So yeah, Simba was just saying, can you be hired by a company that does not sponsor for a visa and work full time on OPT for 3 years? Yes. So again, so CPT is for when you are doing your undergrad, and then you can apply. And in fact, there's a form again with the Office International Programs Office to work with them to apply for OPT. And I don't know how many years that is, if it is 3 years, but you can get, and again, a lot of it depends on what field you're in here. Um, and so you can get that to work. And again, you can work at a company that doesn't sponsor you, you can still work for them as OPT. But again, some of the companies that maybe aren't going to sponsor you may not be willing to put in the training and the effort to, hire you. But again, some of them will there. And then, yeah, we'll talk. Grad school is down there. You can always go to grad school at some point as an option for more time in the United States here. Okay. So nationwide, yeah, look often outside Minnesota. Now, it's scary it's scary enough going to Duluth. But then, to say for 3 months, I'm going to go out to New York City or to Seattle or someplace like that. But it is certainly feasible. A fair number of these might help you with housing, or do you have some support? A lot of places like, in Duluth or the Twin Cities, there's a lot of summer part-time rentals here because of the student, in and out flow. So you can sublease often, stay somewhere. And this is possible. I mean, I just think back when I was your age, I remember driving to Madison uh, without a job, without anything, just driving to Madison, Wisconsin, and just spending, 4 days with my girlfriend. We had to look at the newspaper and just you couldn't apply for jobs online. You couldn't apply for apartments online. We just went there and spent 4 or 5 days, 20, 8 hours a day trying to find an apartment and then trying to find a job while we were there. So um, I just think um, now that you have the internet, you can do so much more searching and finding jobs at a time. And it's a great time there's so many parts of this country you should go to that are, I mean, Minnesota's wonderful, but there are lots of, other wonderful places in the country. So okay, so job fairs, let's talk about those. One of the big ones is the Minnesota Private College Job Fair. That's had some problems last, with COVID and stuff, but it is back up and running pretty good now. And so it's generally in February. Um, and it's in my mind, it's one of the last job fairs of the season because, by that time, there are companies that just save their listings for this fair. But again, there's a lot of job companies that will be listing now also. They, with their big pamphlet, they'll have the list of all employees and they'll list on that which ones accept OPT there. In the past years, they've had an immigration lawyer present to help answer student questions on this here. The other thing is to look at some of the national job fairs. We're sending some students to Grace Hopper celebration. This is largely for women and non-binary students. It's in October. We've sent students to the Tapir celebration. One student paid their way here. We have a small amount of funds where we can send students to these fairs every year, but this is expensive. It generally costs us like about $1,000 a student to send students to these fairs because registration's often $500. Airfare is often, two to $300, and then hotel is often another $500. But again, you share your hotel room, so that knocks it down there. And we usually have about, and again, we're getting contributions from alumni and stuff to support this. But we usually have about $4,000 a year to send students to some of these diverse conferences. So that's what we're always managing. Now, just recently, we had a student going to the Black Society, the National Society of Black Engineers annual convention, which was in March, and it sounded like that was a good one. Um, yeah, Simba says for STEM, it is 3 years for OPT. That's good to know. And then we've been looking at this. I have two students looking at the Afro Tech conference in November here. So again, we're trying to manage funds. Currently, we're kind of trying to do an every other year. So trying to support students going to Grace Hopper 1 year, and then we have been going to Tapia, but I haven't been overly impressed with Tapia. So I'm kind of leaning more to maybe next year trying to fund students here. Now, these are expensive, and these are expensive to go to. Some things to watch for, and is a lot. Some of these conferences will have scholarship opportunities or volunteer opportunities where you can get free, like they'll give you free airfare. Like if you get a scholarship to Grace Hopper, you get free attendance at that. Some of these you can volunteer and they waive the $500 admissions fee. And then you just have to volunteer for like 5 hours, like, 1 hour or 1.5 hours a day for 3 days while you're there. Some of those are great opportunities. And also this scholarship and volunteer opportunities are also a great way to network and meet people, because often the people running these conferences are advanced people in their fields here. So, um, okay, job fairs. Okay, let's talk about getting an interview and an offer. So certainly you should be talking to Career Services. They have their new Bright Space course here, and they have information about cover letters, dressing. They have their whole clothes borrowing area, elevator pitches, handshakes, head shakes. Head shakes, handshake, which is our job and job tracking website. Headshots, all interview. They'll do good prep. So if you're going to a job fair, I'd certainly bring your resume, talk to them about it, practice your walk up to a booth and how do you introduce yourself speech there. So they have some good resources there. Um, and Mary and Brianna are wonderful. I work with them a lot. So we've been just recently looking at CodePath, and I'm actually meeting with them tomorrow to learn more about them. This is a nonprofit organization for college students in tech here. They have a number of courses, free courses you can take here. Um, and they have some pathways. So like just a interview prep pathway. They have a web development pathway and a cybersecurity pathway, Android development. So you can apply and get in their program and then take some free courses. They also have a nice, let's go back here, career kit that's really focused on computing students here. So talking about, the technical interviewing and behavioral interviewing, offers and negotiating here, job search resources, career path stuff here. So again, here's a bunch of job search resources they have. For this, and they have access to career coaches and some of this sort of stuff. So I'll learn more about this in the coming weeks. But again, we have a student now who's been working with them and been very impressed by their work. So um, they have, I'm trying to look where I got stuff. Yeah, I think under job fairs. They have a whole section for early career students for that. So, um, no, it wasn't here. I'll post that also here. And that's where uh, they listed a bunch of these companies and these early career sort of internships for these different companies that I got from there. So um, that's a good place to look. So consider applying or getting into CodePath and applying that. Um, Again, if you're doing tech, you should have a LinkedIn profile and a GitHub profile, especially if you're in software development. And the career CodePath has good information on it. Career Services has a good thing on LinkedIn profiles. They don't have anything on GitHub because it's too specific to our field, but CareerPath will have, and again, there's a number of sites online will tell you how you might want to set up your GitHub as a new student. And again, most of these places will also do interview prep. Um, I think it's very important. One of the main reasons I see students not get internships is that because they just do not prepare for the internships and they don't practice selling themselves. You need to prepare. You need to, figure out what you're going to say and how you're going to say it and I always tell students what you should have is you should have like 4 or 5 stories about yourself that make yourself look very positive that you have. And you should have these stories ready to go so that when you get the questions, you can pick one of these stories. And a lot of the questions are the same, especially these are behavioral issue kind of or interview kind of stories here where you're asked, tell me about a time you've been on a team and how that goes. So you should have a teamwork story, and you should have thought ahead of time about one that talks about, what are your strengths and how does this story talk about your strengths there. Um, and again, projects. Tell me about a project you completed in class or by yourself, and you should have, projects ready that. And again, tell you the truth, there are projects out here that I see students talk about or do, and I go, you should, this does not put you in a good light. You don't want to tell them about this project that failed, or unless you're talking about how you overcome adversity and then you went on to finish it later or whatever. But sometimes, yeah. So make sure you do interview prep, and Career Services does an excellent job there. Okay, let's get down here to some of the data. And this, I think, is one of the things that's more useful for uh, students looking for employers and where to get jobs here. So our U.S. Immigration Service has data on every company and how many H-1B visas they have, and they have it by state there. So you can go to this website and you can uh, click and download this data here by site and stuff like that. I've done this for some sites here and put it in a little Google Sheet here. So I did Minnesota. I did the 4 West Coast states. I did Texas because I know a number of students wanted to go there, and I did the East Coast states also here. And now this is not in any specific field. This is just companies that applied for or did the most H-1B sponsorships here. So like in Minnesota, US Bank, Mayo Clinic, Medtronics, University of Minnesota, Target, Best Buy, here RBC Capital for this, Ameriprise Financial. Um, and so um, what do you see from this? Well, some of these are going to be uh, getting physicians in here. So like Mayo Clinic is probably a lot of physicians. They're sponsoring a lot. So that might not be what you're interested in. Some of these will be hired faculty. So the University of Minnesota is hiring faculty teachers, and that's not necessarily computer people, but places like OptumServe, Medtronic, Target, Best Buy, and again, these financial companies, a lot of times they will be hiring or, computer or data and data scientists, data analysts, and that sort of stuff for that. Especially now, if we look at the West Coast, again, a lot of those, so Walmart, not necessarily, oh, maybe, I don't know, but, these are the main IT companies, Meta, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Salesforce, NVIDIA, Cisco. So, most of these who are, and it's good, it's interesting to look and see, you can see how many um, visa sponsorships they had I think this is the last year here for this. Uh, Texas, again, Info Systems, again, Oracle, Tesla, AT&T, HP. Some of these are financial companies here that you'll see. American Airlines, so, Caterpillar. So some of these are just big multinationals. And again, but there's a big drop off between, Infosys, which does, 5,000 and Caterpillar that does 100 here. East Coast, similarly, again, now once you get on the East Coast, you're looking a lot at New York City and New York Financial District, and a lot of the financial companies will do, the finance and investment companies are looking for the best talent out there again, and they might be sponsoring. So, and I've seen better luck with our students getting into the financial organizations than in the big tech companies. It is everyone's trying to get into Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, stuff like that. It is very challenging for our students coming from a small Midwestern university to get into these big places, these big tech jobs, yeah, right out of college. We certainly have alumni working at a lot of these places, but again, a lot of them will go there, you know, 3 to 5 years after they graduate and they get more experience. But I have seen a fair number of students get hired directly at and doing internships at Ernst and Young and Fidelity Investments and these sorts of investment like Goldman Sachs, Bloomberg, sort of stuff. Uh, and again, these are hiring a fair amount of students. And again, I have the raw data here, but you can also, like I say, go here and click on any state and just say, what's Idaho look like? So for that. The other data I think that's useful is My Visa Jobs is a website, and they break this down by by different things. But one thing they break it down is by job title here. So they have the top job titles here, like if you're going to be a professor, assistant professor here. And so these will be universities that'll be hiring there for this. You know, these are the main universities hiring. So that's University of Minnesota there. But some of, the top positions here, the two top ones are software engineer and software developer. Those are by far way above any of the other careers out there. Uh, Now, I also see a number of students going into data analyst or that sort of stuff, data scientist stuff, or like business analyst. And that's great. There are jobs out there, but just be aware as an international student, there are a lot more sponsorships for software development and the software development concentration than there are for like a data or a business analyst here. Now, sometimes it's just a matter of, a business analyst can also work as an analyst and an associate, and a data engineer. So there's a number of things where a business analyst career will include you. But the same is actually true for software developer here, because besides software developer, there's software development engineer 1, 2, and there's just a Java developer here and a developer here. So there's more, and DevOps engineers. So there, but this is a good field to go into here. Now, if you go in one of these areas, let's just look at software engineer. Again, this is Microsoft, Google, Meta, and again, showing the number of sponsorships they did here for these companies. So what I would suggest is that you look at, and I'm going to, You can look there, but I've combined that into this spreadsheet for you. Um, so this is software engineers. This is the top 100. Well, anyone that's doing more than like a dozen sponsorships often. Here, so software engineers, software developers, business analysts, and data engineers. And I have analysts and data scientists also down here, which are less common. But I would suggest going through this list and picking out some of these companies and getting on their mailing list, seeing what their careers, what internships they have there. Um, Certainly, a lot of students like to do the Googles, the Waymo, NVIDIA, that sort of. But just know that there's 1,000 students applying for each of those internships. So if you're not in the top one out of 1,000 students, that's a little more challenging. But um, there are lots of companies here that you have never heard of, and I've never heard of, that do a fair number of sponsorships there. So you can be looking at some of these companies and do it. So I recommend, as you're searching for stuff, spend some time looking at some of these companies, and that's where when I'm doing this internship, like the H-1B ideas, all these were companies on that list that sponsor lots of people. IBM, Medtronic, Barclay, Services, Bank of America, Federal Reserve Bank. So all these companies do uh, are listed as companies that sponsor lots of students. And again, all I did was go through this list. Well, you can see the ones that are are colored. I was just marking them when I was going through. I'll clear that off, but I was just marking them so I kept track of them for that. So again, look at this spreadsheet or the original websites as good places to go. Someone mentioned grad school here. Oh yeah, someone asked, can you show again? Oh, you got the raw data for the websites. So again, if you want the U.S. immigration one, just click on this link. So this is my spreadsheet down here, and the link, the above one is the raw data. So this is U.S. immigration, and it should just load down here, and then you can sort by employer or industry or that sort of stuff. One thing to keep in mind for industry is that computer people work in a lot of industries. So certainly we work in software or tech industries, but we work in healthcare, we work in investment banks, we work in insurance agencies. So sometimes the insurance filter doesn't help that much for us for the industry we're in. So again, that's the first one. And again, here, this link is my spreadsheet. This is just my jobs. And again, they have a number of, you have to go, this is ad run thing. So they have a number of different reports. So by companies here, you can see what they're doing at different companies. And you can also search by occupation or job title. There's sub reports and by state here. So again, you can go by state and see which states do the most sponsorships here. So again, California, Texas, New York, Washington State. So that, because that's Seattle, this is New York with all the investment banks. Texas has a large tech industry, and California. And I mean, California is against Silicon Valley, but the East Coast is a different feel. I mean, the West Coast is a different feel and often very competitive. So sometimes I think Texas or New York might be a little easier to get into. And again, I actually think well, maybe not North Carolina, but Research Triangle, North Carolina, Chicago, Milwaukee, some of these places, Atlanta, there's some great opportunities, some of these other sites too. So, okay. Sorry, I got distracted. Hopefully that answered your question. Yeah. Oh, let me share this spreadsheet with you again. Someone's asking for this. Um, I'm pasting it in chat. I did that once, but I'll also paste it when I'll send this video out tomorrow or stuff, and it'll have this QR code in it, which will link you to the what I shared in the chat also, which is just this document here. Okay. Um, so again, this is a good place to do, and it's useful to know who is sponsoring because again, not every company is sponsoring, and it's good to know. I haven't found the perfect place where you can just search and find software development in this state and how many sponsors they are, but this gives you some different views of that, either by state or by um, category, yeah, like software developer or something like that. Okay, let's mention grad school a little bit. You should also, I think everyone should consider grad school because I love grad school. But you should consider grad school, especially the international students, because that will extend your CPT time. Because when you're in grad school, you can do CPT again and work while in grad school. And it's really common for, I mean, I worked when I was doing my um, well, when I was going to my master's program, as a master's student, I could get some really cool summer tech jobs, doing some really cool tech stuff, because you're in a master's program, and that kind of elevates what who will hire you for that. There. So again, just so in case you don't know, there are two main degrees in the United States, a master's degree, which is usually 2 years after your undergrad, and a PhD, which is usually 5 to 7 years after your undergrad here. Um, Now, some places and often as you're working on a PhD, you might get a master's as you go. You don't always get that, but some programs do there. I know there's more funding for free PhD, so I started as a PhD student there and went for free using this program here. Um, but after 2 years, I just got my master's and left. My wife at that point needed to get out of town we were in and just could not stand it. And so we just got up and left. And I took my master's degree and we got a job and we moved out to Denver, which Colorado we loved. Um, but again, I just had a master's degree. And then later on, I went back and I did that in 2 years, which is pretty common. And later on, I went back and got my PhD in a couple more years. There usually will take, it's not uncommon to take like 4 years. But again, usually when you're working on your PhD, you're often getting paid and stuff. So let's talk about that. A lot of PhD programs offered free tuition. They'll waive your school tuition and then they'll pay you. So you get paid to go to grad school there. Generally, you get either a teaching assistantship where you're teaching or TAing classes, or a research assistantship there, where you're working with a professor on your research projects for this. These are competitive, particularly competitive for international students because a lot of the funding is from like the NSF, and the NSF doesn't necessarily have good funding for international students. So again, you have to see, and again, there are some master's programs that offer this, but generally PhD programs offer these. But again, like me, I was in a PhD program and it just wasn't a good match for my wife and I. And so I left that after I got my master's. But then when I went back for the rest of my PhD, I did this. I paid tuition there. But I was working full time and making pretty good money at that point, so I could afford to pay tuition there. Now there are a variety of schools. Some of them are very competitive, and some of them are not competitive, and will just accept anyone here. So, like example of a non-competitive is our St. Scholastic graduate program here. We'll generally accept any students that fit. We have basic criteria, but we do not have a test requirement or anything like that. But if if you have a computer undergrad and you want to do our master's in data analytics, applied data analytics, you'll get in as long as you're willing to pay tuition for this stuff. But other schools are very competitive, and I fill out references for students, and so Some of the schools will ask, rate the student from, is it in the top um, 5% of the class, prop 10% or 20%, whatever. But the top level is the top 5%. And again, that's most of my students who are applying for grad school are in that top 5%. But like if you apply for Stanford or something like that, the top 5% is the lowest. It says, is this the best student you've seen in the last 10 years is the first criteria. And then is the student in the top like half of a percent or the top 1% or the top 2% or the top 5%. And they just assume that you're in the top 5% because otherwise you wouldn't even be applying. So again, schools vary a lot in their competitive nature for these things. And again, there used to be just computer science. There's a lot of other programs, data science, applied data analytics, information systems, software development. So there's a wide range of it. Still, a lot of them are just computer science programs here. So a lot of them, especially the competitive ones, will expect you to do undergrad research or stuff like that. So different opportunities we have to do undergrad research some at the summer. Here's a whole area of um, research REUs, research experience for undergrads that you can apply for. And again, these usually come out in December and you do it. And I'll have we'll do grad school, I think, in another video here. But one of the problems with a lot of these is a lot of these are funded by the NSF, and so they are not available to international students, unfortunately. So I'm looking to see what options. Now, some schools will require you to take the GRE here. This is the graduate record exam. It's like the SAT for grad schools. So you should certainly watch this. Most students who are applying for grad school, will apply for anywhere from 8 to 20 grad schools. And you need a couple faculty references. So it's really common for me for a student to say, I'm applying to grad schools. Here's my list of spreadsheets of 12 schools I'm applying to there. And again, a lot of them there have fees, but we'll talk about if you want to go to grad school, talk to or look at it as something else and, on ways to have the application fees waived and stuff like that. There are lots of options, and a lot of us faculty have worked a lot with helping students through grad school. Like I say, I might try to record a separate video, although, yeah, I might do it with the STEM project. Okay. Any other questions? Looking, how'd we do with the list on chat? That looks pretty good. Any other questions in chat?
Hey Tom,
Yep.
I have a question.
Okay.
So just to make sure, I know you talked about it twice, but I want to make sure again. So you said that going to grad school can extend your CPT. Like, how does that work? Let's say I graduated and then I got a CPT like internship and I want to go back to grad school. Like, is that allowed? Can I do that?
Right. So here's what I understand. And again, you should be checking with the Office of International Programs because I'm not, well, so you can do CPTs as every semester that you're in school with your F1 visa, right?
Oh, sorry,
Uh,
I'm at OPT.
oh
Yeah.
yes, and again,
Yeah.
you can do your OPT for 3 years after that. But I think and again, I here's what I do know is that if you are doing your F1 visa, you do your undergrad, and then you go to grad school, your F1 visa continues, right, into grad school
hmm
while you're in grad school. There, I don't know how it works with if you can go OPT, finish your undergrad, go OPT, and then go to grad school. Does anyone here know if that's true? I think that's true. In fact, I just talked to two international students who are graduating in December here, and yes, and that's what they're doing. They want to go to grad school, but they're first applying for OPT because again, they did summer internships. They want to continue working those, so they'll work those summer internships for a while. I don't think their summer internships will necessarily lead to sponsorship. They don't know, that's unclear at this point. And so they're going to do the OPT for a couple years before going on to grad school there. And they're looking for grad school options. So I think, yeah, it looks like I have a student saying here that that is an option to keep you here. So,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Um, I had one more.
Okay.
But it's related to grad school, and you said you're gonna make another video about
Well,
grad
yeah, well,
school.
why don't you ask it since you're here?
Okay. One second. So yeah, it's about the REUS. Can you explain more about it? Like, does it just have to be any research, or does it
Well,
have to be like a
yeah, so
specific
grad
one?
schools will generally want you, I mean, so most of grad school, so yeah, let's talk about what grad school is. Like even in a master's program, you're generally just doing coursework. Like it's just more coursework like you have, just harder classes, like you did here, for 2 years. And there might be a paper at the end, or there might not be. PhD is usually 2 years of coursework. So again, 2 more years of classes, and then 3 year or so years of research there. But even while you're doing classes, you might be doing some research as your job, your part-time job there. And so they expect you to be able to do research and that stuff. So any experience you have as an undergrad to help you do research is good. And this can be any undergrad research. So like if you're doing the McNair program or you're doing like we're just doing a summer thing, especially if it leads to some poster, some presentation, something like that, that's good. And even if it's not national, like even if you're just presenting a poster at the end of the school celebration. The whole college has a poster presentation option in March. The Mix conference has a presentation in March. I was just talking to Brandon. He thinks students could present at the Data Tech conference in at Best Buy in June. So there's lots. So as long as you're doing some research and presenting there. It's similar to how when you're getting a job, a lot of companies will want you to see that you're doing maybe some software development or some special project on the side there. With grad schools, they're looking for you to do research and they're hoping you have some sort of publishing or poster, some sort of place you're, sharing that in a formal setting. But it doesn't have to be an REU. REUs are just kind of the more formalized way that those are done at some of the bigger universities and funded by the bigger organizations uh, in the US government. So,
Okay. Thank you again.
yep. And again, another one is like the research laboratories, like Lawrence Livermore. Those sorts of research laboratories have research experience, and we've had a number of students do their research experience at the undergrad. And I think some of those might be more open to international students. So if you're ever at a career fair like Grace Hopper, talk to some of the research laboratories about research experience there and if they're available to international students. I know some of them are defense department funded, and so those require security clearance and stuff like that, and that's not available. But I believe some of those are available, like the NASA type internships. And I know the
Okay, I'll
NASA
do
there
that.
are NASA intern research opportunities that are available to international students. There's a whole international student NASA program. So, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? Okay.